And we are back for another Jag Bros episode where we are going to review the Jags versus the Colts at Everbank Field. And I'm here with my brothers Jack and JT. How are we feeling about this game, guys?
It's going to be a big game. And as we get rolling, just want to give some shout outs to our awesome listeners. Our podcast actually just hit 2,000 downloads, which is pretty amazing. And we love getting to see Jaguars fans, international Jags fans all over the world. In fact, we just connected with one from Twitter. Flicks just followed us and said that he is listening and subscribing to the Jag Bros. And so, hey, Flicks, glad to have you with us and love just how the Jag Bros are expanding.
You know, I also am amazed at how many listeners we already have on a regular basis. And I think it goes back to what we were saying in the offseason, is this is the time to get on the Jags bandwagon. We have a young quarterback. We have a young offense. They're exciting. They're scoring points. Our defense is playing above average. It's a new team. It's a fresh team. It's a team to get excited about. And so it's going to be awesome for our fans to get to watch Jacksonville take on the Colts this weekend. And you know what? We're 0-2 right now in Jacksonville. So I really hope the Jaguars can turn that stat around and get a win for the good people of Jacksonville.
You're right. Home has not been what it usually is, especially last year. We were very well at home, and this year, not so much. So it's time to turn it around and lock down the bank for real this time. Historically, we've played the Colts really well at home. And we just need to keep that going because this is a very important game. I'd say it's a must-win here. We're going to go ahead and start breaking down our offense versus the Colts defense, our defense against the Colts offense. We're even going to do a little bit of fantasy football, starts and sits, and keys for victory. JT, what is it looking like for our offense?
Yeah, so it's great because we've already seen this matchup. And on this side of the ball especially, we're going to probably see a lot of the same things with some minor tweaks from what we saw in week one. The Jacksonville Jaguars did put up 31 points. Trevor had a nice game, 2 touchdowns and about 250 yards passing. ETN had a good game as well with 80 yards on the ground and 30 yards ish through the air, as well as a touchdown for him on the ground. And then Calvin Ridley had a nice breakout game, especially in the first half, where he had over 100 yards in the game with multiple catches. What are you guys hoping to see this offense do that we can potentially build off of the second half of last week's game?
Absolutely. I think more of the same. So in that week one game, we dropped 31 points, as you said, JT. That's actually the most that the Colts have allowed all season. And so this is a defense that is not incredible. Some of their stats are pretty good. They're actually middle of the road, 19th against the run. They're 20th against total points for. They're very weak against the pass, but they've also not gone up against a ton of high-powered offenses. The Jaguars potentially being the best offense that they've faced. And if you look at another game where the Colts defense struggled, it would be against the Rams. Stafford had a very good game with 319 yards. And then their running back, Kyron Williams, had a huge game with 103 running yards and over 60 receiving yards. So there's definitely some open opportunities for our offense. And I think the big thing is just going to be making sure that we come out strong. We can't view this as, oh, we should easily win. No, because I think if we bring just 90%, then this is a trap game for us. I think we need to come out fast as we've been doing these last 2 games. Get a good start in the first quarter is going to be key.
The Colts are the 5th worst pass defense. And so not only did we have success in the passing game, but pretty much every single team that's played them has also had success. And the other thing is, if you actually look at their best wide receiver options, those are guys getting over 100, 130 yards against them. Hopkins had over 120 yards. Nakua had over 100 yards. So did Nico Collins. And so you should see Jacksonville's top passing options have a good and successful day. But like we highlighted in week 1, their front 7 is pretty solid. Zaire Franklin is actually leading the NFL in tackles. It felt like he was everywhere when we played them, making key tackles, making key stops on third down. He's a difference maker, as well as Shaq Leonard and a couple of the other guys they have there in the front 7.
You're right. We need to spread this ball out. This is a game that I actually don't mind us playing maybe a little more horizontal, because I'm a little scared of the middle with DeForest Buckner, game wrecker, Zaire Franklin, another game wrecker. And I don't trust this offensive line to really hold up against them. We need to get the ball out wide quickly and get the ball moving on the outside, do some sweep plays, do some screens, and just get the ball out quickly and to the outside, and let us make some moves on their less than average secondary. And that's where I think our offense is going to thrive, is kind of on the outskirts and spread out, not up the middle.
You've heard that name, Zaire Franklin, a lot already in our podcast, and you'll probably hear it quite a bit. He actually had 18 tackles against us in week 1 and 1 forced fumble. So that is a guy to watch out for. And the other area to watch out for with this defense is they're actually tied in 9th place with 15 sacks. They got several sacks against us in week 1. There are some question marks, some injuries about our offensive line. And so we do need to be watching out for their pass rush.
This is where I think also, I mentioned it in the last episode, I think we need to put Blake Hance at left guard. He's a lot stronger than Shatley and Ben Barge, and we're going to need that strength up in the middle, because DeForest Buckner is a game wrecker. He's going to tear through Luke Fortner and Shatley. And we need someone who's going to be able to stop him and even maybe get a little bit of push. And I think maybe Blake Hance is that, because we saw him make that game-winning open for Travis Etienne to skirt through. So I think that might be the play.
Yeah, and it's going to be, and the reason why Joey's bringing him up, obviously, is because Walker Little is injured. He has a sprained MCL. Most likely, he is going to be out 3 to 4 weeks, is the prediction. He certainly will not be playing in this game. We're also going to be without Zay Jones. While he's listed day to day, we've also heard reports that it's the same knee injury. And for most medical doctors that have weighed in on that already, they think it's going to be at least a 2 to 3 week injury, and that his production should take a slight setback when he is back on the field. And so Zay had a nice game in week 1, so you're going to have to replace his production. Most likely that means is we'll see Kirk more in some of those 2 wide receiver sets, even though he had a pretty quiet game in week 1. But Kirk does a lot of his damage over the middle. And so I still think it might be a little bit more muted game for Kirk overall, but think that folks like Etienne, Ingram, and Ridley should all have fantastic games against a very average to below average defense in the Colts.
That's a good point, JT, and it will be interesting to see what the Jaguars do with offensive line with Little almost certainly out, although he is very positive that he thinks he can speed up that recovery. And he is, as we've been saying the last couple episodes, he's been our best offensive lineman. So any way that we can get him back on the field in a healthy way in the near future would be great. But also just wanted to remind y'all, we keep updates on a day-to-day basis on our Twitter account on X. And so make sure to follow the Jag Bros for day-to-day, because a lot of times injury updates can be game time decisions. And so make sure you follow us there for all injury updates.
Yeah, and the Zay Jones one hurts. If there was a way that we could just have him back for the red zone, that would be great, because all the man does is catch touchdowns, and it seems like him and Trevor have a really special connection in the red zone. So if he needs to sit out during the middle of the field and just kind of comes in for the red zone, I'd be totally happy with that.
Yeah, but unfortunately, we might be a couple weeks away from that happening for us. But I do think that's a great idea, because that is definitely the place of the field that he certainly seems to shine.
Yeah, which means someone else is going to have to step up in the red zone for this offense. In fact, Ingram had a great touchdown opportunity in the first quarter in the Bills. It was a tough 50-50 ball, but he's a guy that I keep pounding the table because he's had a good season, but still 0 touchdowns. And typically tight ends are your targets in the red zone. So I want to see Ingram bring in a touchdown in this game.
That is strange that Trevor Lawrence hasn't really targeted Evan Ingram in the red zone or around the touchdown area, because I do think that he's been wide open a few times and Trevor's just either missed him or doesn't trust him down there. I'm not sure what's going on, but I would love to see that in this game, is get Evan Ingram a few touchdowns, because I have him on my fantasy football team and he could use it.
Love it. And so we're going to now look at our defense against the Colts offense. And as JT said earlier, this is a team that we did play week 1. So if you want some more in-depth study into it, go back and listen to our preview and our recap of the Colts game where we beat them in week 1. But in many ways, this will be a new offense that we're playing against. So Anthony Richardson is injured. He's out for several weeks, so we will not see AR in this game. And we'll also see Jonathan Taylor, who just had a contract negotiation. He played a little bit last week, but almost certainly will see the ball more and get more snaps in this game. So you'll see Gardner Minshew. The Jaguars faithful are certainly familiar with him, and you'll see more Jonathan Taylor in this game that you did not see in week 1. So what are y'all looking at when you think about our defense going up against the Colts offense this Sunday?
I actually have a question for y'all. Do you think that the Jag fans are going to cheer when Gardner Minshew comes out to start, or are they going to boo?
Maybe for the first play, we'll cheer. But once the game gets rolling, you better believe the Jaguars want to win this game, because as you said right at the top, this is a big game for us to win.
Minshew Mania was absolutely a real thing in Jacksonville. I loved him as a Jaguar, and I think there's always a little bit of a soft spot for him. I don't think they'll necessarily boo him, but I don't see that they're going to cheer for him at all. And honestly, in a lot of ways, I feel like he makes the Indianapolis Colts offense much more dangerous this time around.
I agree. So you look at Gardner Minshew's career stats. He's thrown just over 7,000 yards. He has a little bit over 63% completion rate, and he's got 46 touchdowns and 15 interceptions. And really, it's that last stat that's key, that, again, the Jaguars faithful knows, is this guy typically doesn't make mistakes. He's never going to be a top 5 quarterback in the league, but he's always going to put you in a position to win, which means that the Jaguars defense needs to make sure that they make some big plays against Minshew.
He's also not a quitter. We need to make sure that we kind of put him away and don't let off, because he is scrappy and he'll keep fighting even if we're up by 15. So we need to make sure that we don't just give up on him, because he will make some Minshew magic sometimes.
And this game scares me, especially on this side of the ball. Jacksonville is due for a little bit of regression on the defensive side. I think the Colts are going to have success offensively. Gardner Minshew unlocks parts of this offense that are kept under lock with Anthony Richardson, especially the mid to deep passing game. I think Pittman should have a nice game. Jacksonville has proven to not be the best secondary right now. In fact, we're one of we're the 4th worst when it comes to secondary passing yards given up, passing percentage, a lot of those different stats. We have been opportunistic with the fact that we're second in takeaways, averaging a little over 2 per game. But Minshew's relatively careful with the ball, so that's a concern. And then you add on to the fact that we were playing against Evan Hull Jackson playing running back, and now they're going to have Zach Moss and Jonathan Taylor, both of whom are much better running backs. Like there's a lot of concerns for me on this side of the ball. I really think the Colts are going to score at least 20 points in this game. And so I think it's going to have to be a situation where the defense gets some timely turnovers or the offense steps up.
Yeah, I have a hot take for you guys. I agree with you, JT, that the Colts offense scares me more with Gardner Minshew at the helm. But I actually have a really hot take, and that is that the offense scares me less with Jonathan Taylor versus Zach Moss, because they, of course, just paid Jonathan Taylor big money, 3-year, over $40 million deal. So they're going to want to get him more and more involved. And I legitimately think that Jonathan Taylor was a one-hit wonder. He led the league. He was the number one running back in 2021, but he was not very good in 2022. Yes, he was battling some injuries and some difficult quarterback play, but there's some real question marks of, was that 1 year just a blip, or is he actually elite? And I lean towards him not being that good. And actually, Zach Moss is the one who just had the big scary game with 165 yards and 2 touchdowns. And so I'd actually rather see Jonathan Taylor on the field than Zach Moss here.
Both of those guys are going to be better than Deion Jackson and Evan Hull, who was getting those
100%.
carries. And so regardless of whether that is true or not, it's going to be one of the better running back tandems that we've seen this year.
And I actually agree with your hot take, Jack. I've never been a massive Jonathan Taylor fan, and I just can't see him being at his peak performance. He didn't practice at all during the preseason. He hasn't been at training camp. He, like, all this drama around him, I just don't see him coming out and having splash plays. I think we saw a lot of people who got their money and haven't performed well. Joe Burrow got a huge payday and hasn't played like he normally does. Lamar Jackson got a massive payday, and he's been hot and cold all up and down the field. Like, you see these players get these big paydays, and they don't perform, and I just think that Jonathan Taylor is another one of those who just got a big payday and is not going to perform. And also, I want to bring up, I think JT's take on our secondary is very wrong. I think our secondary has been very strong. Campbell has played very aggressive and has done very good tackling, and you don't see his name as much because people aren't throwing towards him. And Williams is playing great, especially the last 2 games. Interceptions in both games, huge shutdown plays. Cisco is maybe one of the top safeties, I think, in the NFL right now, playing lights out. And Rayshon Jenkins finally had a comeback game last game. So I'm not scared for our secondary at all. We're going up against maybe one of the worst wide receiver cores. Pittman's slow as all get out. Josh Downs, haven't seen anything from him more than 3 catches for about 20 yards every game. Like, there's no one on this wide receiver core that scares me at all. The only possibility is their running backs, and our defense is one of the better running defenses. So I just don't see this team scoring that much against us. It's going to be on our offense to score points.
Joey, we've given up almost 300 yards to every single quarterback we played. Josh Allen had 359s, and their best receiver had 121 yards. Patrick Mahomes had 300 yards passing against us. Even Stroud had 280 yards, and you played against Anthony Richardson week 1, who is not a proficient passer, and he still had 220 yards and a touchdown. So I hear what you're saying, that we like some of these guys, but the fact of the matter is, if you look at the stats, if you look at what's going on, we're not elite at that position. In fact, we're below average at most of that. And while we do make big plays and we like some of the players to a certain extent, and maybe there's a little bit of noise in those statistics too, for the most part, opponents do have what they want from a passing perspective. And Gardner Minshew is absolutely an upgrade over Anthony Richardson in that department. And so that's part of what scares me. And while, yes, some of these guys haven't been uber productive this year with Pittman and Downs, I also think when you look at the games and the situations where Minshew was playing, those guys were pretty dang productive.
I think there's a lot of noise in those stats too, because you have to remember who the Jags are lining up against. And you just pointed them out. We played against Mahomes, who people argue could be the greatest quarterback of all time. And we went up against Josh Allen, who pretty much everyone ranks in the top 2 or 3 among NFL quarterbacks. And CJ Stroud has torn up pretty much every defense, which is troubling for the Jaguars in the AFC South. And so the good news for the coverage is going to be that if there is one weakness for the secondary, it's been on the deep ball for sure. And Gardner Minshew does not have a cannon. He's much more of an accurate system quarterback. I said this about the offense. I agree on the defense. They need to come out 100%. You can't come out flat against this team.
JT, your stats there are also a little skewed because The Bills only ran the ball, 9 times? Obviously, you're going to get like 300-yard passing if you have that many attempts. Josh Allen is going to feast, and Patrick Mahomes is going to get his yards. And unfortunately, CJ Stroud is looking like easily the best quarterback out of that rookie class. Panthers really messed up by taking Bryce Young.
It's true.
Oh, big mistake there.
Yeah.
CJ Stroud is looking really good. And once he has a little bit of a better team, the Houston Texans are going to be scary. And that's unfortunate. And as you said, it looks like the problem with our secondary may be the speed of some wide receivers. Tank Dell's a very fast guy, and he had huge catches way downfield. And Diggs and Gabe Davis had big plays way down the field. Colts have no one who's going to challenge you down the field. Pittman can't run that far. Minshew can't throw it that far. And
yeah, I mean, Alec Pierce is a burner. He runs a 4.41, and Josh Downs is a rookie. He runs a 4.48, and even Pittman runs a 4.52. So like all three of those guys aren't like horribly slow. To your point, they don't necessarily challenge the field north and south. And that part of that is because Gardner Minshew is more of an east-west type quarterback. And part of that is because AR is proven to be relatively inaccurate oftentimes when throwing the ball that long. And so I don't expect us to necessarily be getting gashed on big plays per se, but I think you could absolutely see them have some success, which I think brings us to our next section in fantasy football.
yes, we're going to go ahead and go into our fantasy football starts and sits for this game. I have Trevor Lawrence an absolute start. I think that he is going to feed off of the success that he's had over in London and keep it going. He seems to really do well when he's on fire, and I think he is on fire right now, and he is a definite start. And then my sit for the offense is Travis Etienne, honestly. I'm scared of the interior offensive line. I don't think they're going to be able to block DeForest Buckner or Franklin, and I think it's going to be a little difficult for us to get rushing yards. What do y'all think?
I think that's a little hot takey. I think Etienne is a must start. He had a successful game against the Colts, both catching the ball out of the backfield as well as rushing. I think Calvin Ridley's a must start. I think Trevor's a must start. Ingram probably is a must start too. I think especially with Zay Jones out, you're going to see more balls go his way than what we saw in week 1. Kirk, to me, is a little bit more iffy considering the fact that he had 1 catch for 9 yards in that first game. He will most certainly be more involved in the game on Sunday, but even still, he does a lot of his work over the middle of the field. And to Joey's point earlier, that's going to be a tougher possession to get a lot of catches. So I think it's going to be more of more of a Calvin Ridley game than it would be a Christian Kirk game.
Yeah, I think from a fantasy perspective, you hope that you can start pretty much anyone on the Jaguars passing attack from the main guys because the Colts are currently ranked 29th against the pass. And so there should be a great opportunity for Trevor to have a big game to keep that momentum going. And I actually do like Kirk here just because we've seen so much momentum with him. I think part of week 1 was just Trevor getting used to a new offense with some new weapons because, of course, Calvin Ridley got so much attention. He actually had a career day for him in the first half. And I like both of these guys, Kirk and Ridley, to have a good game and to see Trevor do what he did against the Bills, which is to spread the ball out a good amount, which means I think you start Trevor, I think you start Kirk, start Ridley, and yeah, start Ingram because, to be honest, in fantasy football, it's not like there's a ton of other great tight ends anyways.
I also think that the Jags defense is a start this week. I think that Gardner Minshew is going to come here and really want to perform, and he's going to push. He's going to push the ball, and I think that's going to lead to interceptions. I think that we will probably get 2 interceptions on Gardner Minshew, and I also think that we're going to kind of shut down the run. We've played the run very well. That's maybe the most strength on our defense is stopping the run. I think that our defense is a definite start.
Good stuff. Well, I know that y'all love fantasy football, so hopefully that helps you a little bit, but let's get into the game. And let's talk about the keys. So the Jaguars are lining up against the Colts this Sunday at noon. And looking at the offense and defense, what are the keys for the Jaguars offense? What are the keys for the defense to pull out this win on Sunday in Everbank?
So we said this in the Bills game, that this was a terrible spot for the Bills. They had just played perfectly 3 games in a row and won a very emotional game the week before against the Dolphins, a divisional opponent, and they're due for a letdown. And the spot was just really bad for them. And that's part of what we saw play out. Personally, I think this is a bad spot for Jacksonville. And so I think next week against the Saints is an even worse spot. I think one of the benefits that we have is the fact that we're 0-2 right now at home, and the fact that we're playing a divisional opponent. So we're certainly going to be up again for this team. But I would like to see us offensively score 10 points again in the first quarter. I think it's gonna be really critical for us to take a lead, to show that we're here, to build off of the momentum that we had in the first game, and that we're coming in from Buffalo and not have a little bit of a hangover. So from the offensive side, I think it's going to be scoring early and getting at least 2 scores in that first quarter and a half. And then defensively, I want to see us on third down conversion. Gardner Minshew loves those east-west plays. He's had success. Pittman is kind of a perfect receiver for him, considering he's such a possession guy. And so I want to see us hold them to under 30% from third down conversion. I think if we do both of those things, then Jacksonville wins this game more often than not.
My keys for victory this week are for the offense, starting fast, go punch these Colts right in the mouth early. Don't even give them a chance. They know that they don't play well here. And I think if we go up quickly, that maybe that they subside. And we also need to get the ball east and west on them. I think we need to stay out of the middle. Just take Zia Franklin out of it. Try to get the ball very far out with some screens, maybe some running back screens as well. Just get the ball towards the sidelines and show off our speed against these Colts defense. And then for our defense, I think it's going to be key to go after these turnovers. I don't think they're going to pressure you down the field, jump some passes, load up the box, and constantly be going after them. You don't need to protect the backside of the field because I don't think Gardner Minshew is going to throw it far. I don't think any of these wide receivers are going to be able to get very far. So go ahead and do what you did last week against the Bills and swarm to the ball, tackle, get no yards after catch for those wide receivers.
Yeah, this is a tough game. And I agree with you, JT, of there's a lot of things going against the Jaguars here of now all of a sudden you have to deal with jet lag of you've been in London for 10 plus days. And yes, you came to Jacksonville early in the week, but that's a real factor. You're coming off a huge win. And this Colts team is really scrappy. Like on paper, the Jaguars should have much more talent on offense and on the defensive side of the ball, but the Colts have played really well. They've outperformed certainly our predictions already. And in 5 games, they've won 3 of them. And the other 2 games, they played really close. They took the Rams to overtime, and we beat them 31-21. But in many ways, that game was closer than even the score might show, where it really was anyone's ball game till about halfway through the 4th quarter. So keys, let me go quickly. Offensively, I love Ridley. I love Kirk in this game. I think both of them need to have big games, or one of them have a monster game and the other have a decent game. So the key stat I'm looking for here is both these guys combined to get over 200 yards, which is something they just did in the Bills game against a much better defense. And then defensively, I think you have to limit the run against some talented running backs in Moss or Taylor, whoever sees the field. So limiting them to under 120 yards, which is doable. Our defense is holding teams to under about 90 yards. And then would love to see 2+ sacks as well in this game.
2+ sacks. That would be a welcome sight for sure.
And listening to y'all, it made me think of another key. It's not on the offense or defense, it's the team entirely. And I'm going to say, don't listen to the noise. You don't need to let a regression happen or jet lag. You're already back home. Doug Peterson gave you Monday and Tuesday off. There should be no excuses. You know who doesn't listen to the noise? The 49ers. And you know who else doesn't listen to the noise? The Eagles. What do? They go out and they win every game. And that's what we need to be able to do. Don't listen to, oh, it's okay, like you had jet lag, or don't let all these excuses pile up. Don't listen to it. Just go out there and play the game that you know how to play and just show up like you did last week.
Yes, sir. That is exactly what needs to happen. And so, moment of truth, our predictions, real quick to highlight what we predicted in the Bills game. Even though we got so much hate on Twitter, all three of us predicted the Jags to win, and we were correct. And so, JT, you had us 27-24, Joey 21-17. I had us 31-24. And shout out to one of our followers, Willington, had the game at 27-20, the Jaguars winning. So it's only 2 points off. And make sure, again, you engage with us on Twitter because we love getting to see your predictions all over the place and have a lot of fun going back and forth there. But moment of truth, who do you have winning this Sunday, Jaguars versus Colts?
This is a game in the past Jacksonville would 100% lose. You're playing a journeyman quarterback. Some might even compare him to Ryan Fitzpatrick, per se, a guy who's beaten the Jaguars with 5 different teams. And so this is a game in the past. I think Jacksonville loses. I think this is going to be a pesky game. I've already said that I think the Colts offense has success, but I think Jacksonville wins this game 22-24. So closer game. We don't cover the spread, which I think is about 4 points right now. But I think it's a game that this team right here wins. Maybe it's a walk-off field goal. Maybe it's close at the end. But I think Jacksonville finds a way to win this game at home.
Yeah, this is a tough game for me to call. I've gone back and forth either way. I could definitely see us rolling with some momentum. We have a 2-game win streak coming out of London. We're headed home. We have a division rival, and we have a lot of potential of the next 3 weeks where we play the Colts and then the Saints and then the Steelers, where those 3 are very gettable games going into the bye. But I think this is an ugly game, and unfortunately, I think we see Minshew Magic happen, and I think the Jaguars come out, unfortunately, in a trap game where they actually do the opposite of what they've been doing, and they come out really slow. They try to come back late, and I just don't think the Jags pull this one out. I have the Colts winning 24-17.
Boo, tomato, Jack right there, because I am the absolute complete opposite. I think this is a blowout game. I think the Jags are on pace. As you've seen, they're going to have no mistakes, and they're going to go out there and score 38 points. They're not going to fumble it in the red zone. They're going to score every time in the red zone, just like they did in the first game. And you know what? We're going to shut down Gardner Minshew. There's no Minshew Magic no more. No, he's not on the Jaguars. We're going to pick him off. We're going to shut down the run, and they're only going to get 3 points. 38-3, Jags win in a blowout. They're going to prove to the nation that the Jags are the AFC champions and going to be number 1 because they are ready for it.
Yeah, baby.
All right, well, I am definitely cheering for Joey's prediction to come true. And Joey is always picking the Jaguars to win, which I love. Keep the faith, and you keep the faith. Big game coming up this Sunday.
That is right. It's going to be a massive game. Let's go show that we are the kings of the AFC South. There is no one coming else into the bank and winning. We are going undefeated for the rest of the time at the bank. We had some slip-ups, but not anymore. We lock down the bank. Be there if you're in Jacksonville or watch on TV. It's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central Time. I want all our Jag fans watching, cheering us on, and making sure that we are the AFC South champions.
Lock it down, baby.
Lock down the bank. And from all the Jag Bros,
Do